Welcome everyone to our How to Prevent Ransomware by Ransomware Responders webinar. My name is Bogdan Glashko. I am team lead for Proven Data. We are a cybersecurity and digital forensics service provider, and so today we are going to explore effective strategies on how to prevent ransomware attacks and safeguard your systems. So feel free to share your thoughts and questions through the session and using the chat feature. We're doing it through different platforms. I think we're doing it through LinkedIn and YouTube, and I know we've done some of the heads up, so to say, through a channel program as well, which a lot of our audience will be managed service providers. But we're going to try and keep it, very general, informative version of the webinar and see how that goes. And this is the first one in the series. So first, let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about who we are. So we, as I said, we're a team of certified forensics computer examiners and certified computer examiners, and have different certifications for DFIR and cybersecurity in general. So to kind of like explain to you why we are in a good place to provide you with this information is because on a daily basis, this is what we do mostly, is we do incident response and forensics for organizations that have been hit with a ransomware, right? And these could be also including ransomware recoveries that we do, or might be just like containment. Help us. We can get in our systems. We've been encrypted. We don't know what's happening, right? And or we don't know, like, okay, what data has been taken. Can you figure out what data has been exfiltrated, right? Which is essentially stolen data. And our team comes in. A lot of times these are new clients. A lot of times these are through partnerships that we've have with insurance agencies and carriers and so forth. And and I am, as I said, I'm the team lead. So I do mostly help communicate between clients and our responders, incident responders, and recovery teams to facilitate smooth operation, to facilitate very smooth response. So I see this. This is what I do mostly every day, is to respond to these type of incidents. So we're going to go ahead and get rolling. So just so folks who are new to this know, what is ransomware, right? The idea, it means that, hey, the where is kind of a tool, right, for deploying something, right? And ransom is a tool to demand a ransom from a company or individual. Most of the time, it's companies, in order to gain, to get paid for holding that entity or an individual for ransom. So it is in a way, it is just essentially a malicious software And what it does most of the time is it encrypts files or systems and demands payments for decryption, right? Um, and A lot of times there's two types of mainly two types of ransomware today, which we're going to focus on crypto ransomware, but especially in the past, the locker ransomware has been something that also been affecting people. And actually, even some of the recent large attacks are focusing on locker ransomware, which essentially they're not encrypting data. It might not be exfiltrating data, but they're causing so much hassle and disturbing the operation of a business so much, where it is kind of easier for a company to pay the ransom and say, stop this right now because you're causing us so much disruption to operation. And then you would see that that was an example with CSAR and MGM hacks, which two main hotels in Vegas area, which essentially were not so much encrypting data, but causing huge disruption to the operation where people couldn't get in the room, so people could not use slot machines and whatever else was happening. So and then it was much easier for some of the, well, I think Caesar ended up paying it, and MGM did not pay the ransom and had to completely shut off parts of their network. So that's kind of what the locker ransomware looks like. I mean, if a big company gets breached, encrypting it is kind of pointless because there are going to be backups. But for small, medium-sized organizations, yes, absolutely. So they're going to go and hit the backups. They're going to go and hit the data of the organization to try and get, and it is very strong encryption that typically is applied, and the keys are generated on the fly and sent to a command and control center, which essentially holds, passes the key to build a decryptor for the threat actor to later. Um, so that if the ransom is paid, they can pass it on to the victim, and the victim can decrypt that their data. So um, and mostly today, the ransomware as a service is what is most prevalent, which means that ransomware is quite a sophisticated operation today where there are multiple parties in the process. And there is going to be so to say, developer of the ransomware and the affiliates of the ransomware. Let's say if we take Logbit as an example, Logbit would be a developer that provides the infrastructure, the encrypting software, the communication, the blog that they can do, where they put the victims up. So it's very organized in that way. And then they charge, let's say, 20% off a paid ransom. An affiliate is the actual, so to say, hacker, right? That the one that breaches and encrypts the system, and then they utilize Lockbit's software to encrypt the system, and then later to communicate with the victim to demand the ransom payment. Um, so, and then we're going to go on to the next slide, and so ransomware. Um, Trends and kind of why you should care about this. This is why we're presenting it, and it's been on the rise as you've probably heard in the news. It's you always hear about a bigger breach and a bigger ransomware attack, and some service has been down, or people unable to access their accounts, and then later on it turns out to be a ransomware attack. Many cities are falling victims to it. Many mid and small size organizations. Your doctors might have been hit, right? We've seen a lot of doctors, law offices, and being hit with ransomware attacks. So anyway, overall, cyber threats are evolving and sidestepping existing security protocols. And true defense, it requires a continuous monitoring and reinforcement. That's the bottom line. That's what we're seeing, right? At the proven data, what we do, we tackle, we tackle the prevention. We try and assist clients with by securing supply chain. We test for software vulnerabilities. We do pen testing. We check for how vulnerable would an organization be for double extortion tactics and data exfiltration. So, and my question is, as you able to chat with us right now, and yes, let's see if you can tell us about your story. If you've heard about anything of this or ever been in a situation where your client has been affected by it, or have you been ever affected by a double extortion attacks or a ransomware attack? So share your stories, please, in the chat. Maybe we'll come back to them and share something interesting. And of course, if you have questions, please go ahead and post them in there as well, because we are going to be having an FAQ session as we wrap this up. So we're going to try and hold this about, I would say, 25 minutes for the webinar, and then about, I would say, give or take about 5 minutes for FAQ. So how do these attacks happen? Attacks often begin with phishing emails, exploit kits, brute force attacks, or remote desktop protocol exploits. That is what we're seeing is mostly happening today. Phishing is still, major part of, I think officially about, like, from the collected data, which is going to be different from what we see based on the size of organizations that we respond to. But I think it's like 70 or 80% of the is going to be phishing emails. Okay. And RDP is still, somehow people are not, registering it in organizations, even that opening RDP uh, port and just, open wild in a wild out there externally, so you can RDP conveniently into any of the machines whenever you want. That's a very bad practice to just to leave it open like that. It has to be under a VPN, or have to have a MFA, right? So this is still happening every day. We're seeing these type of attacks every day, just brute forcing the RDP, and very much so today. So I'm sure most of you guys that are listening today are have seen suspicious emails, so to say, and what you want to start asking yourselves a question. Okay, um, do you just like ignore it? Do you archive it? Do you mark it as spam? What do you do when you get something that seems not just generic spam or generic, like, hey, click this link or something, when it seems more persistent, right? Like, okay, sometimes you can say it's not targeted, like in a phishing email, it's not targeted at all, and it's just generally like just general spam. Yeah, they're just trying to fish somebody. But what happens when you're getting something that seems to be like coming from a department or a team that you're working with in some way, or like a contractor, or somebody in the supply chain that seem and pretty persistent, or maybe emailing multiple of your employees? Like, it's called in the cybersecurity world, it's called a spearhead attack. So really is targeted attack, and this is what is a man in the middle type of attack is related to that as well. Is you're trying to either show yourself as you're the man in the middle, and the attacker, that's what they're trying to do, is like, hey, you're in your supply chain, or here's an invoice from a company that you work with, or um, you know uh, things of that nature, right? So yeah, my question to you, and please feel free to respond in chat, is what would you do if you keep getting hit with something that seems to be highly targeted? What is your action plan? Okay, and we're going to come back to that and see. So what not to do if that happens to you, right? So there's a lot of things that are general for prevention that we're going to go about in a minute. But if this ever happens, what should you not do? Um, First thing is, of course, don't delete any ransom notes, executables, or anything else, any data that seems to be encrypted, right? Don't. The best thing to do is don't delete anything, right? Don't touch until you kind of have, ideally, you have an IRP, like an incident response plan, that allows you to effectively respond to that type of scenario. But absolutely don't delete any of the stuff. So don't shut down. So why not shut down? Why not delete? So deleting anything is, for example, executable file that you don't want to delete it, but you can quarantine it, and that way an incident responder or a forensic company can, such as ourselves, can, of course, reverse engineer it and see, first of all, see if it's possible to retrieve a encryption key or see how it operates and acts and what type of indicators of compromise that it drops. It allows a forensic team to effectively respond to an incident and have a better understanding of what happened. Same thing with shutting off. If you restart a machine, if a machine is actively, if a computer, right, the host, whatever, there are many names that are called endpoints, is currently encrypting something, you want to suspend that process. You want to suspend the encryption process, and you want to unplug the network, right? That's what you want to do. You don't want to like shut off the computer, restart the machine. That first of all, if especially if it's a virtualized environment, that will halfway stop encrypting a file, and even if you paid ransom, would not help to decrypt that. So that allows us to, if we capture a suspended process or capture RAM on a machine that is running that has not been restarted, we're able to reverse engineer the encryption algorithm and restore systems faster. So, um, and then of course, if that happens, immediately seek to uh, uh, don't delay a response to it, right? Is you want to immediately seek help. To the faster you respond is the better, and this is why it's so important to have an instant response plan, so you're not lost. Okay, who do I talk to? What do I do? What needs to happen next? uh and then here's a quick overview of what you should do. Is, as we already talked about it, is you prepare your team and yourselves in case. And this is when I mentioned, okay, what do you do if you get that phishing email? So your people in your employees in the organization must have an idea of what to do. All right, they clicked on something, they downloaded an attachment, they're gonna like just sweep it under the rug and like just forget it. Like, okay, hopefully nothing happens. That is how organizations get breached. So they need to have at least a basic training and on, okay, whether or not they're going to actually click some a phishing link, and if they do click, what happens? What if they observe a suspicious remote activity, right? So this is what that's about. And preparation of systems, making sure they're up to date, setting up protocols, and monitoring and tests. So we're going to go and dive into that real quick. So what you should do, as I mentioned, is this provide employee cybersecurity awareness and training. That is to teach your team members of what to do and not to do. Implementing least privilege access control, absolutely. So that what that allows. What is least privilege access control? Is essentially if somebody does not need to have permissions for. I've seen organizations literally every user is an admin. Okay, that is just very poor policy, and essentially any time that a small part-time employee is breached, they are able to, the attacker immediately able to access the entire system, and everything is on it, and shut the organization down and hold for ransom. Enforce strong password policy and management. That goes without saying, right? So again, I've seen organizations and almost see it on a daily basis where password requirements are just okay. Hey, never expires for 4 characters. So that when it comes to brute forcing, and that let's say again a part-time employee has been breached, so to say, and has been accessed their machine. So then from that point on, it is very easy to brute force an admin account, right? If their password strength is really weak. So, and let's hop into preparation of systems. So, again, you've probably heard it a billion times already, but yes, regular software updates and patching so important, right? I've seen organizations get breached within 2 days after uh, getting uh, after a security update has come out, and a known vulnerability, well, a vulnerability has been exploited in the wild, right? And it took about, as I said, took about 2 days. So a patch came out, 2 days later, these guys didn't patch, bam, they got hit. So, and how does that happen so quickly? Is because in some cases, it is easy to either through OSINT, like a open source investigation or research a threat actor can, or using, obviously just tools out there that can ping different ports and different IP addresses for a specific service. They will find that weakness that has been observed, or a vulnerability that they can exploit. They will find it out there quickly, and can exploit it rather quickly. Not in all cases, but in many cases it can. And so that is why it's so important to, if you can automate it, absolutely automate it. If otherwise, just for critical systems, you want to be able to set it up somehow so that when critical vulnerability is patch is released, you are somehow getting alerted. There are many ways to do that. We're not going to spend too much time on it, but that's something that you want to look into. Absolutely. So disabling unnecessary services and protocols from your server and firewall, using reputable anti-malware and EDR solutions. Some EDRs are just EDRs, and then they work in conjunction with anti-malware. Some EDRs are also performing actions of an anti-malware, like a Windows Defender or something, but an EDR today is kind of a must. Implement a robust data backup and restoration process. That's, just think about, okay, if is your backup, if I'm a threat actor and I'm on your network and I have admin credentials and I have administrator's machine that I can go into Chrome and other browsers and dump all of the passwords from remembered passwords, will I be able to easily access that backup and wipe it or encrypt it? And if the answer is yes, then you do not have a robust data backup and restoration process. Uh, Setting up protocols. So I mentioned this a few times. So incident response plan is just absolutely must have. It got to be pretty detailed and very well thought through, because it just takes one time, sit down, develop it, and renew it every so often. And then it's an absolutely lifesaver. So if this is something you need help with, absolutely, we're going to provide you with ways to reach out and schedule a call with us after this webinar, and we can help develop that and provide you with some templates if that's useful. So define roles and responsibilities for your response team. Again, for a larger organization, especially if you're not just relying on MSP, or you are an MSP, okay, in your MSP, what part of incident response are you doing? And then who's your vendors? Who are your vendors for further response? And we can also help establish that if that's something you need help with. Establish containment, eradication, and recovery procedures. So, and then that gets pretty detailed, and it's typically a part of IRP. So we're not going to go too much into it, but yes, absolutely. So how do you contain a machine, right? If that gets infected, do you have a plan for it? And for recovery of that machine effectively. And of course, plan for internal, external communication protocols. So you don't have to have a whole lot of planning, but like, okay, if the systems are down, if this is something you're relying on as an internal tool that's hosted on your servers and your server's down, how are you going to communicate with your team? And who is going to be doing your external communication with which partners, right? So if in case you are breached and your network is down, who is in charge of, you know, who's in charge and how would you communicate it with which clients? So that's something that you want to know, especially if you don't even have the client database in front of you in case that has been encrypted. So it's quite a lot to consider, but very helpful. Otherwise, and we see it every day, then an organization and their service providers are in panic mode, and then they don't know what to do. They don't know what to run, and it's a completely chaotic environment. Don't get yourself in there. So, and then my question to you folks again in chat: do you have an incident response plan in place? How confident are you in its effectiveness? Have you done tabletop exercises? Have you tested your incident response plan, and how did that work? So please let us know. And of course, monitoring, testing, conduct regular risk assessments, test and validate incident response plans. Implement multi-factor authentication. Monitor your logs and activities for threat detection. So we provide an MDR service which is a 24/7 endpoint monitoring. And it's not just endpoint, it's also cloud. It's all of your firewalls. And we provide a managed detection and response service where, if you have an EDR solution, we are able to manage it, and we do threat hunting, threat intel. We are fully covering. If an organization or an MSP, they want to offset the security and not rely on in-house, not just rely on a tool, not just rely on in-house personnel, and they want to like have a managed type of approach to it, then we're absolutely a good uh, way to approach the situation. So all of these things are most of these things that we went through are covered under our MDR. Not trying to sell it, but I do think that it's worth considering. Not just doesn't have to be, proven data MDR or anything, but it is a good way to tackle so many different points. And today, pricing gets more and more aggressive and effective with automation, AI that we're utilizing, and able to really reduce the cost of the human labor and utilize machine power to do a lot of that stuff. So if you are interested in that, or you have questions about it, please feel free to reach out, and we're going to go into that as well. So, and this is where I did talk a little bit about AI just in the previous slide, but what is the future of ransomware? Yes, it is absolutely. IoTs are a huge part of what is going to be exploited. It's your smart fridge, it is your smart lock. um, you know there's a lot of things are in development with malware fusions. There's a lot of advanced techniques like fileless attacks, and it is quite difficult to stay on top of it. So, but staying ahead by adopting continuous security monitoring or proactive vulnerability management, so to say, security by design approach is a way to go forward. So, you know, it's definitely seems overwhelming, but as you are able to, there are a lot of ways to easily educate yourself today. And if you would like to discuss any of these things that are concerning to you, please uh, hit it up in chat. Let's see if we can answer those questions. Or on this or next webinar, we're going to get into details of each of these attacks and attack vectors as well. We're going to get more detailed. Right now, we're kind of like just very generic version of this, just to get people aware of what's going on, that this is a huge issue. And we're going to try and teach people how to tackle these things and prevent it. So that's kind of concluding what we've got to cover. As I said, we're gonna try and do a lot more in depth versions of this and go into very specific, like we're going to do an IRP webinar, and we're going to do, let's say, a network design or security type of webinar. We're going to get technical. So I'm not a technical person myself, not so much, but we have engineers and we have technicians and analysts that are going to participate and help me out with that. So I have a few questions that I have been sent while I was working here and hosting the webinar. So my assistant has sent me a bunch of them, but I'm gonna I have like 3 minutes left and try and pack it up for you guys. So let's see. What are the first steps to take if we are suspect of a ransomware attack? So absolutely, that's a very common one. You would want to isolate your systems and notify incident response team, and that uh, avoid shutting down your machines, right? As we've discussed, to preserve evidence. So essentially, you unplug your network, you suspend the processes, encrypting processes, and then whoever is in charge of your IR needs to be notified to begin that to begin the response process. Now, the details of the IR we can have another 2.5 hours of webinar. So I'm going to hop into the next question. Let's see. What are the best backup procedures, and how often should I back it up to protect against ransomware? Um, I mean, you want to, of course, have what I've seen works really well. Absolutely is, you have cloud onsite and offsite type of backup, or you have rotational backups. They work really well, which means, right, you're backing up. It depends on how quickly and you need to be able to restore, and for how, what type of restoration points work for you. But of course, daily backups, like weekly, you can do a full backup or something. That depending on what system you're using for the backups, but also, as I said, rotating backups. Let's say you have a bunch of, like a NAS or something that you shut off once every so often, and then you turn on the other NAS, and then you back up to that, and then you like kind of rotate them this way. So when if you are breached, right, they only encrypt one, and then they're not going to see the other one because it's offline. That there's nothing they can do, and that's something that I've seen work really really well. Uh, so I think I'm unfortunately out of time, and I'm getting a bunch of interesting questions here that I would maybe see if I can answer them and post them somewhere on LinkedIn for you guys to um, to see the answers to those. So I'm not going to ignore those. There's a bunch of them, and I'm willing to host quite a few more of these, or with the help of my team, host a few more of these webinars. Hopefully, you found this one useful, and it was well spent 30 minutes of your time. I know it's precious, and I really appreciate everyone joining this webinar today, one of our first ones in a series of ransomware response. Thank you so much, and hope to see you in the next sessions of the webinar, where we also probably, as I said, will have a few people participating, and it will be more of a conversational type webinar. All right, thanks.